do exist. I'd put Ferguson or Paul Scholes or someone from class of 92 as head of football recruitment. Tried and trusted ambassador who I knew knows a footballer when he sees one. I'd have a shrewd, hard-nosed businessman doing the transfer deals. I wouldn't put a pair of chartered accountants and ex-investment bankers like Matt Judd and Ed Woodward to talk to agents. You know, the scourge of the industry still to this day, football agents. My God, I could talk for hours about what I do with football agents. And I must tell you, I wrote a letter to the FA way back in 91, 92, telling the industry, asking the industry to say they've got to sort these ex-second-hand car salesmen out and these ex-rogues who become football agents. They've tried to get their act together now, them licensing them, FIFA agents, but they're still the scourge of the industry. They cause a lot of trouble. A footballer needs representation. Yes, this is where a chartered accountant can come in to represent a player with his personal terms and how he must manage his income, or a solicitor. And I recommended that all agents should be a fully qualified solicitor or a fully qualified chartered accountant with exemplary reputations. That was not taken up by the football authorities, and hence we've got the mess the football agency industry is today. Well, it's not a mess, it's just incredibly lucrative for a bunch of very questionable people, I have to say.
Oh, this is incredibly fascinating. I've got about 5 questions there that you just answered, about the influence of the agents and things like that. But one thing I want to get onto before I do concentrate a couple of direct questions about the Glazers. You talked earlier about Sky Sports and the difference that they made, and that's undeniable. One thing I'm interested in is a thing that's always been on my mind, and I'd love to put the point to you about it. Football today, especially this season and the back end of last season, there was a lot of talk about the pay-per-view model. And in a way, this goes right back to the 80s with that Big 5 or Big 6 breakaway that they were talking about just before you. This was the mid-80s, wasn't it? 83, 84, 85, 86, the television strike where they were negotiating the new deals to actually broadcast more games on television, and the Big 6 were sort of like United, Liverpool, Everton, Arsenal, Spurs, and the idea effectively that United has a social or sporting responsibility to be part of the bigger football pyramid, but does have this commercial potential that simply dwarfs everyone else. Even United compared to Liverpool's viewing figures, and I'm talking like now with United being as bad as they are, United's viewing figures are just astronomical compared to what you would expect from a team like Liverpool. But obviously these are teams with their own resources who do their own things. But I do wonder about the implication of clubs like City and Chelsea who try to take advantage of their own position within that. So the question I'm making the point I'm making and the question I'm putting to you in a long-winded way is, do you ever think there'll come a day where, I know there's MUTV, and you could say it's part of that, but I do think the party line aside, MUTV serves its purpose. Do you ever think that there'll come a day where United begin the process of negotiating their own broadcasting deals away from the rest of the Premier League, or the rest of English football, really? Because I think that in a way is the biggest carrot for a club like United that's sort of untapped revenue.
Well, let me answer you this way, Wayne. The reason I left Old Trafford, which was completely my own decision, it was a conscious decision because the negotiations, the Big 5 and 6 had always talked about, TV only wants to watch the Big 5 or 6, and we should have more of the pie than everyone else, etc., etc. The reason I left the glamorous portals of Old Trafford for the gusty corridors of a northern outpost of Brunton Park, who finished 92nd in the Football League, and the only reason Carlisle United hadn't been relegated was because Aldershot had gone bankrupt and into liquidation. So the reason I left Old Trafford was I didn't like the noises I was hearing. From your Evertons and your Liverpools and your Tottenhams and your Manchester Uniteds. I said, hang on, what about the other 72 clubs? What about the rump of the industry? Because this is football, this is the pyramid. These are very valuable community assets. This is a people's game. It always has been a people's game. It's not, it's not just for the big 5 or 6. This is the romance of the industry is that, in theory, a non-league club could get in the FA Cup final. In theory. In theory, let's forget the Premier League for a moment. Let's imagine it was still the old 4 divisions, first, second, third, fourth. The romance of the industry is that a 4th division club could win the FA Cup and teach the big boys a lesson. The whole concept and the whole romance of the industry was being packaged and questioned in a way that did not fit with my view of the football industry per se. And the reason I left Old Trafford, look, I could still be there today. I could have stayed and enjoyed the privilege and the pride and the puffed up peacockism that you often see when, I could travel the world as director of Manchester United with my blazer and my tie and drinking champagne and eating my prawn sandwiches. That's not what football's about. Football is about being the people's sport on a Saturday afternoon, as it used to be, or a Wednesday evening, as it used to be. It was the release for 90 minutes. You can forget your troubles, your domestic troubles, your commercial troubles. Forget your life for 90 minutes. Let's go and support your team. And these big 5 clubs, I was the director of one of them, were making noises I didn't like. They made them again recently, and thank God, kicked into touch again. Look, football is about the pyramid in this country. It is about supporting your team. I'm very saddened that it's just now a billionaire's game, and some players are earning £500,000-600,000 a week, and all right, they've just put a package together to save the rump of the industry and the 72 clubs and the non-league clubs. But this should have been done at the outbreak of COVID. Whenever that pyramid has put at risk, you need the big boys. Yes, the glamour clubs, but they do have a responsibility. They do have an agenda which should be always to protect the pyramid and always protect the dreams. You mentioned the phrase Walter Mitty, who, of course, was the fictional dreamer of all time. Well, Michael Knighton's a dreamer, because the football industry is about dreams. And if you're not a dreamer, don't go into the football industry. You've got to believe that your club can reach for the stars, because that's the magic of it all. That is the romance of it all. That is what the game is about. And I think most fans, if they're fair-minded and if they're true football fans, they don't want to see the pyramid destroyed. They don't want to lose their position at the top of the pyramid and at the apex. Of course they don't. They want to stay top dog if you're a Man United supporter or a Chelsea or a Liverpool or a Tottenham Hotspur. Of course you want to stay there. But, secretly you love the challenge. And you love to swan about in the FA Cup and go to the non-league or go to the 3rd division or 2nd division team and show who you are. To destroy that, you lose the whole kernel and the whole focal point of this wonderful, wonderful sport. It's about dreams. It's about ambition. It's about one day getting your Port Vales or your Carlisle Uniteds or your Accrington Stanleys up there to join the big boys. That's what it's about. Becoming impossible now, Wayne, with all the money that swirls about at the top level. But no, disgraceful that the Big 5 could ever think that it is just about money and nothing else. And it would be a wrong move to charge for Manchester United to go out on a limb and say, the world wants to watch us, we'll negotiate our own rights. If they do, it's the beginning of the end, because you're beginning to fragment you're no longer a collegiate source, you're no longer the pyramid, you're just an individual entity for yourself, by yourself. Yes, let's have all the money. Wow, you've destroyed what's precious about this wonderful sport. So I hope it never happens, Wayne. I don't think it will happen in my lifetime. But yes, a chartered accountants like Edward Ward and Matt Judge, economists, who's got a degree in economics from Bristol. Yeah, these people are stupid enough, egotistical enough. Some owners are commercially minded that way. They're not football people if they want to do that. They're just what they are. Money-grabbing people that I don't want any part of.
Let me jump in there and ask you about this, Michael, because you make it in such a great point, and there's no one who's United persuasion who's listening to this who could disagree with what you're saying. And you talked about money swilling at the top and non-sporting people being involved. Ed Woodward's involvement at United is obviously was involved in brokering the takeover and negotiating that, and then as soon as David Gill and Sir Alex Ferguson were out of the door, he assumed this position of power, which is frankly ludicrous. And yes, the decisions that have been made in the meantime are just frankly ridiculous. But I just want to pick your brains on the Glazers as bad owners. In a way, are they doing what was expected, in a way that United got to this sort of level of financial power that someone was always going to come in and do this to them? Or, I mean, I've been one person sort of like, whenever a club like Portsmouth, for example, they were in a great position and then someone took advantage of them and they've been left for ruin, basically. It's only United's commercial power that has stopped them from being ruined. I try and put it into the perspective of the fact they've had over £1 billion drained from them. Just interested from your point of view, this is part of something that you helped create. Obviously, it must be sad for you to see them taken advantage of in the way that they have been, but do you think that because of the path that they were on, that it was always going to be inevitable that an owner like the Glazers would come along and do this to them?
Well, sadly, yes, and I feel terribly guilty sometimes, because my blueprint was all about exploiting the commercial potential of this great and wonderful sport. But I have to tell you, in that blueprint, if anyone takes the time to read it, I say the motivation of my tenets and ideas in that blueprint was to create profits in order for the football club to go out and buy any player in the world, bar none, because they'd have the funds to do it. And in other words, my blueprint was to ensure success on the field of play, and then you create a very positive commercial circle. Fans want to see success, they want to see entertainment, they want thrills, they want excitement. That's what they pay their money for. But they want success. And the only way you can do that, or the only way you could do it then, back in 89 and the early 90s, was if you were generating funds. There were very few people, although I did predict one day sovereign funds. Sovereign fund is a fund managed by a government or a royal family, as in the Middle East, with the Qataris and with the royal family that really own Manchester City. They are billionaires, and they were always going to plough billions. But, you know, I do regret how this it's just turned into a money fest at the expense of everything else. And you mentioned Woodward, you mentioned the Glaziers. Look, the Glaziers are distant owners. I mean, for goodness sake, you know, you've got Woodward and Matt Judge. They spend most of their time in Mayfair in London. You know, the most expensive real estate area on the planet. They've got their offices there. Okay, they flit up to the Man Utd training complex now and again. Why do you need offices in Mayfair? The argument is, from these ex-investment bankers, oh, well, we need the prestige. When you're inviting big companies along, we need to be in a flashy, cavernous office in Mayfair. Rubbish. And then, of course, there are those supporters of Woodward who give him credit for cementing certain commercial partnerships and sponsorships. This is nonsense. It's nothing to do with Woodward. You can have a monkey wanting sponsorship partnerships with Old Trafford and Manchester United. For goodness sakes, the greatest sporting brand in the world. You've got people queuing up to do the deals. You don't need a man like Woodward, chartered accountant, to do the deal. You need a proper football man with brains to make sure you are getting the very best of these commercial deals. But I don't know whether Woodward lays claim to these deals himself or the Glaziers bestow congratulations upon him for doing this. But yes, almost by default, he was appointed by the Glaziers because he was an accountant, chartered accountant, with KPMG or someone like that. And he landed himself a £4 million salary for running the greatest football club in the world. Yes, he's done very nicely for himself. Thank you very much. Who wouldn't want to earn £4 million for running Man United and having a cavernous office in Mayfair? I mean, it's laughable what's going on. It's totally laughable. And I'm angry about it. You don't need to have a fancy office down in Mayfair when you've got Old Trafford. Let Mohammed come to the mountain. It's just unbelievable what's going on. The wrong executive team is in place. The Glaziers are the people that own and manage or control the club, and they are the organ grinders which are controlling the monkeys. It's about time they stepped in and either sold the place to proper people who are prepared to put Manchester United back on top of the tree where it should be, or they should appoint the right football people who are suitably qualified to be running this magnificent football club. So yeah, I'm angry about it, and these are my opinions, and I'm entitled to them. What possessed them to put an pair of investment bankers to run the football club, I have no idea. Other than to protect their own debt pile or manage their own debt structuring. Yes, you do need an investment banker for that, and a very shrewd one. Well, they've got to pay. I mean, Matt Judge, I'm sure he's incredibly competent as an investment banker, and I'm sure Ed Woodward is an excellent chartered accountant. But that doesn't mean they're brilliant football people who know how to manage Manchester United. It's not an equation I can put together. It's 2 and 2 that makes 100 for me.
No, you're absolutely right. I just find myself agreeing with everything that you say, and it's not funny, is it? It's absolutely horrendous what's happened to United, and I do want to repeat that. I've said it before, wherever I can, really, is that if any other club had the same amount of money taken out of them as what United have had, we're talking about institutions like Arsenal and Liverpool that would have been out of business. It's just incredible, really. The last question I want to ask you, Michael, I'm not going to... Obviously, you had this incredible blueprint for success for United in the late 80s and early 90s, and like I said, so much of it was implemented at the club and directly responsible for some of that growth as well, even if you don't want to sort of say that. I'm happy to say that for you. And I do, again, want to recommend people read that book, Visionary. It's just really an incredible story of really how United, this modern United, were founded, in the good aspects of it anyway. I'd be interested to know, firstly, if you do have a blueprint for how United could be saved from this position. Not to give anything away within it, but I know that I have read some interviews about some suggestions that you might have an effective model. I know that you've talked as well about fan representation on the board. So not really the finer points of the details I want to ask, but more the dreamer of Michael Knighton. How realistic do you think it could be that fan representation could be on the board, and that United can get into a position of health that, obviously begins with the removal of Woodward and Judge from their positions. Obviously, you have to start the journey, don't you? You have to have some dialogue between the owners and the fans, where they've been notoriously poor for that for 15 years. Obviously, I think you've also spoke about a sporting director and a director of football. Do you think that... well, firstly, do you have a sort of an idea of like a modern blueprint, and secondly, do you think it's reasonable it could be implemented in let's say, the sort of medium to long term, like 3 to 5 years at United?
Well, absolutely. I have written a second blueprint, which I must tell you, Wayne, is more revolutionary than the first one I wrote. In my dotage, I've had I've always been busy, but because of my passion for the game, I've written a second football blueprint of commercial ideas and what should be happening. You'll be delighted to know I can reveal that it certainly doesn't involve the breakup or breakaway of the wonderful pyramid. On the contrary, it enhances it. And the reason I say it's more revolutionary, this blueprint, because back in 1989, all I was hearing, even from the board, oh, Michael, we've done everything, we've tried everything, you can't increase the revenue anymore, you can't do this. And I was so determined to prove everyone wrong, which as you right to say, I did. There are still things today, in this wonderful digital world, this cultural shift we're all living through, where everything is now digital, everything is now up there on the cloud. There are still so many commercial initiatives that even big clubs are not doing, Manchester United in particular. I'm astonished. This is why I question the likes of Woodward. If he really was a football man, if he really was, and I assume he is an outstanding chartered accountant, he must be a good investment banker, as Matt Judge. But, they're still not doing so many things that would, again, shift them up to another plane and bring them even more revenue, so long as that revenue was there for the benefit of the field of play, the player pool, for the benefit of the fans. Because you mentioned fans there on the board. Of course they should be on the board. Without the fans, football doesn't really exist. Look, for the last 10 months, we've watched this wretched COVID virus. We've watched the games being played without fans. I mean, okay, we watch it because we love the game. It's just completely different. The fans are the key to this sport. Whether the powers that be like it or not, they just are. And we all like to watch it in our armchair as well, because you get the immediate replays, we get the commentary, and we see things that we wouldn't when it's live. But nothing's like going to a live football game, especially if it's a thriller, and you're living the passion, you're living the tribalism, you're living the territorial, gladiatorial aspects. Nothing can ever replace that. And so the fans should have representation on every single football club board, especially. Look, every football club is a key community asset. It is. It shouldn't be the plaything of a billionaire. It shouldn't be the plaything, not the plaything, if you like, the cash cow vehicle of distant owners, which is what Manchester United seems to have turned out to be. I think the Glazers, I think they've made a couple of appearances in 15 years. They should explain to the fans what their plans are for the future, where it's going right, where it's going wrong. They have a duty of care to the fans. It is the fans' football club. They might not own it, but the spirit and the magic and the core energy of every football club belongs to fans, not owners. And I know that, I owned Carlisle United. I had the good, the bad and the ugly there. We had 5 brilliant years, and if you're not getting it right, you've got to go. And yes, we were more self-aware in my time, certainly in the early years, than the club had ever done. We had a great model. It went pear-shaped because I fell out with the media. And I left. But I left for the right reasons. Because when your time is up in a football club, you've got to go. My time was up at Carlisle. And I think the Glazers' time has been up a long time. I've nothing against the Glazers. I've never met them. I don't know them. I'm sure they're very decent people. They're clearly very shrewd business people. There's no doubt about that. But look, come on. They've got to be more open and transparent with the fans. They've got to reveal what their plans are. Are they going to sell it? Will they ever sell it? You've got to be fair to the Glazers in the sense that they have sanctioned £1 billion worth of player acquisitions in the last 7 years. Of course, it's not their money. It was the club's money. That's the difference. At least the Chelsea chairman and owners put 500 million quid of his own money into Chelsea. Tottenham Hotspur, 400 million plus of their own money into Tottenham. And to be fair, these are statistics which are undeniable. So, the Glaziers have got some questions that need answering. I could give them a blueprint that would transform Manchester United yet again. But look, they're never going to contact Michael Knighton. They wouldn't entertain me, although I was invited by my last board colleagues to always have a place at Old Trafford and be welcome there. I remember Bobby Charlton, God bless him, giving a little eulogy for me when I left. Bobby and I were just professional friends. We were never close. And Bobby was always appalled at my antics on the first day because Bobby's Bobby. God love the man. One of our great, great, iconic players of all time. But you've got to have fan representation. As long as the fans are sensible and intelligent enough to realise they are part of a collegiate group of people that are managing an institution for the best of its own interests, and that means the club's interests for its patrons, who are the fans. And there are many fans who are capable of making a very, very important and valuable contribution to their football club. So you should always have 2 or 3 on every single boardroom up and down the country. And ex-players. That was my other point. Look, sadly, Wayne, no one is probably going to be knocking on my door to look at my blueprint. I'll probably end up selling it to someone in China or giving it to them for an opportunity to get involved and say, this is what I can do for your football club. I still believe I could transform some football clubs and take them where they should be. And yes, Manchester United, greatest football club in the world, they're massively underachieving. Where are they? They're 7th, are they, in the table? All right, they're only 5 points behind the leaders, but 5 points might as well be 50. They've had a good spell. They went 4 or 5 games unbeaten recently. They're out of Europe, so you're going to struggle in the window to attract your top players, unless you give them unbelievable financial packages. Because the footballer will always put money first. I can tell you that from my personal experience. At any level, the footballer will always put his pay packet first. There are very few that don't. So they're out of Europe. So, your Sanchos and your other top targets, they're going to think, do I want to go to a club? They're not in Europe for the rest of the season. They're struggling. They're underachieving again. They're almost back to where they were in '89. They need a Michael Knighton or someone of his ilk to sort it out. And I hope they find it, Wayne, before it's too late and they slip even further away.
I've got to say, I completely agree, although I would add the caveat that I would attach Michael Knighton to a new vehicle to come in and take over the club rather than give the ideas to the Glazers, because you give them more opportunity to pilfer from the club and sort of seek the commercial advantage over it, that they will take it for their own gain and not for the club's gain. I've got to say, what a fascinating interview with Michael Knighton, and I will say this, that if he turned up tomorrow as part of a vehicle that was taking over Manchester United and was doing some kick-ups into the Stretford end, let's say the fans are there, they would probably want him to turn out for the team, considering we're that bad at the moment. But that's it for this interview with Michael Knighton. I'm so thankful for his time. I hope it was interesting, as interesting for you listening as it was for me talking to Michael. Absolutely fascinating conversation, and like I said earlier, I really do believe that I believe in what he's saying about the idea of a positive move forward. That it can be done, but like I said, without the Glazers, I'd be more inclined to see what idea he had. Just fascinating chat. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and I'll be back soon.